Hi, everyone, and welcome to the wrap up for day 2 of the Risk Awareness Week. Let's quickly check the sound. Tell me in the comments if you can hear me, if everything's fine. Um, Also, write in the comments if you're watching from the Risk Awareness website or if you're watching from outside on YouTube, LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter. As is common, I broadcast those end of day summaries to a broader audience, not just to the people who have registered for the Risk Awareness Week. But yesterday, for some technical reason I couldn't see the comments on the Risk Awareness website. I could only see comments on YouTube and LinkedIn. Now we fixed it. Now I can see comments from everywhere. So don't be shy. Say hello. Say where you're watching from, and more importantly, ask questions. Share your experiences. And in the meantime, I'll talk a little bit about the 8 workshops. So day 2 of Risk Awareness Week. And if you have not registered yet, then you can do so at this address, 2021 Risk Awareness Week.com. The replays are from day 1 still available. Replays from day 2 are still available. So you can benefit from all of this information. Hi Nassim, thank you for saying that you're watching from LinkedIn. It is always wonderful to see comments, and let me quickly check that yes, I am not missing any important comments from you. So day 2, Risk Awareness Week. It was dedicated to the application of quantitative risk analysis in climate and environmental decision making. And I'll quickly take you through the workshops. So the first workshop in the morning was by Sam Savage and Joe Scott, and the name was "Forest Fires and Floods Are Not the Same." Now, this sounds very narrow, but I love this workshop because it really translates the essence of what I'm trying to bring to the profession with Risk Awareness Week. You can talk about very specific, very narrow risk. So if you are into modeling forest fires, or if you're into modeling effect of floods on your business, then this workshop is for you. But not only that, because this is the message that I was trying to say yesterday, and I will be repeating it again today. The underlying math behind, the underlying techniques behind most of the risk analysis are the same. There's only a select number of techniques that you can apply. And once you learn those techniques, you can actually apply them to any circumstance, any type of risk, be it cyber, be it floods, be it fires. The principles, the modeling principles, the quantification of uncertainties, the move away from averages and avoiding the flow of averages and avoiding human bias is actually exactly the same. And that's why I'm, even though this particular day is topical, the techniques that have been behind, kind of under the bonnet of the workshops are exactly the same that you would use for strategic risk, for investment risk, and for many, many other things. So this specific workshop, I mean, first of all, Sam Savage always brings, every year he brings amazing speakers who he has practical experience implementing what probability management does best, is quantifying the effect of uncertainty on big and important life problems. Hi Matej, good to hear from you. Thank you for tuning in as well. And by the way, ask questions, write comments, don't be shy. Let me quickly check that I'm not missing I am not missing any comments, which is good. Technology seems to be working. So that workshop, um, Sam started with very important message is the floor of averages. One floor of averages is one of the most fundamental issues that we have in in risk management. And one of the biggest challenges with risk professionals have is how do we convince the business to move away from deterministic average scenarios or average estimates to the stochastic estimates to show the full range, the full distribution of uncertainty, to make decisions uh, w- looking at the full distribution of uncertainty. And this is what this workshop was about. So if you want to not only learn about fires and floods, but also learn about how do you communicate the detrimental effect and the dangers of using single numbers and averages in decision making, then this is a workshop for you. So I highly recommend it, not just for the fire and flood risk management and the modeling that Joe Scott has shown is absolutely amazing, but also for the kind of the packaging, the presenting of risk information to the decision makers and helping, convincing them or supporting your hypothesis that we should stop planning in single numbers. We should stop planning in averages or just worst case scenarios or just best case scenarios. We should be planning in ranges. And the easiest way to do it is by simulating many different futures and showing the distribution and calculating the chance of certain events or chance of certain objectives being achieved. So that was workshop number one. It is available in replays, as is everything. When you log into the conference website, there is a new button on the top. It says replays, and that's where you can watch all the workshops from day one and all the workshops from day two. And thank you for people who upvote workshops so you can actually see which workshops kind of got the audience preference. For example, the next workshop by Hans Liso. I was going to say it's the most liked, but it's the second most liked workshop during the second day. So Hans, again, thank you, ever present contributor to the Risk Awareness Week. Hans did a wonderful job. He actually continued the presentation, kind of the theme that Hank Kreinen did from yesterday, talking about scenarios as a tool, as a kind of as a simpler tool to move into more risk-based decision making, risk-based planning. He showed a wonderful methodology. I think what was it called? Papa model. Or yes, it was called Papa model. And what I loved about the presentation by Hans is that, like many other speakers, he's really transparent and open into sharing. So he's actually prepared a template, not only his slides that are available for download. And if you've missed, on most speakers actually share their slides and share their models, and on the right side of the workshop page, in the middle, there's a big section called Media, and that's where you can download either extracts from their books or the sample spreadsheets. So Hans, thank you very much for sharing this information, and more importantly, some of the feedback that was written. Thank you for the practical how-to. So this was a wonderful workshop. I mean, Hans really kind of understood the idea that I wanted to bring during the Risk Awareness Week, is step-by-step practical guide demonstrating how to perform an activity that can create value for your business. So thank you for that presentation. The third And again, the workshop is available. You can log in, you can download the sample Excel template, and you can replicate the steps that Hans was taking and apply it in your workforce. The third workshop, and by the way, ask questions, share in the comments, because this is live. I can actually respond to you. So do ask questions and write comments. I'm quickly checking again that nothing is missing. No, I am not missing any comments. The third workshop was by Robert Brown. Now, Robert Brown, who's working for Novelis, shared uh, a wonderful case study, a kind of cleansed case study on how they've actually calculated the economic cost of CO2 emissions and what impact that has on large investment and capital intensive projects. So I loved two things about this, maybe more, maybe I'll remember more. And by the way, if you're one of the speakers and you're watching this now and I'm not doing you complete justice to your workshop, I am so sorry, because I have to keep all of this amount of information in my head, and I'm trying to summarize it as best as I can. For everyone who's attending and thinking which workshops to watch, I mean, I would just watch every workshop, because that's part of the appeal of Risk Awareness Week. I spend a lot of time discussing each of the themes and the workshops with everyone before we sign up them to the program. So they've all been vetted and they are amazing to begin with. Thanks. Thanks, Shohran, for your comments, and thank you for spreading. I know what a big audience you have in the project management space, and I really appreciate what you do for quantitative project risk analysis. By the way, day 4 is all dedicated to quantitative project risk analysis, and all of your friends will be speaking there. So I hope to see you there again. So coming back to Robert's workshop, two things that I absolutely loved. Thing number one is the topic at hand. It was calculating the kind of the social and economic impact of carbon emissions. But underneath that was influence diagrams, which is one of our kind of 5 go-to tools: influence diagrams and Monte Carlo simulations. And this is what I absolutely love about this day. Although we're talking about climate, we're talking about environment, the real things what I hope people can learn is that there are amazing tools and techniques: influence diagrams, decision trees, strategy tables, Monte Carlo simulations. All of those things can be applied in absolutely any context: project context, environmental context, climate context, cyber context, and so on. So Robert showed you how to use influence diagrams. So that was number one. That was a huge highlight to me, because the influence diagrams is probably one of the most powerful tools to risk-based decision making. Second, Robert showed you Analytica. Analytica is an amazing software that has influence diagrams and Monte Carlo simulation built in one. I mean, this is like the future of Excel, or something that comes in horror nightmares to Excel when Excel sleeps, because this is what the future of modeling should look like. And I just wish more companies would use Analytica. By the way, they're not paying me to say that. They're truly amazing. And Analytica 101 is completely free. By the way, anyone who attends Robert's workshop gets a chance to win, I think, a 1-year subscription to an Analytica software. But there's also a free option that you can apply. So that was my second thing. But then the third thing is he showed how to integrate seamlessly integrate stochastic analysis, the volatility of different assumptions into the final decision. And this is huge because capital intensive projects, that's a given for any business on the planet. Any business on the planet has some sort of investment projects where they have to spend capital. For some it's billions of dollars and more. For others, it may be thousands of dollars, but the idea is the same: is you invest capital into something, and it's not a simple task. As the head of operational and investment risk, I know how difficult it is to convince people to switch from deterministic investment decision making to stochastic investment decision making. And Robert showed a wonderful example of how to seamlessly integrate. So uh, even if you're not interested or you're not ready to model CO2 emissions just now, Robert's presentation is worthwhile because it shows how to seamlessly integrate stochastic risk analysis into investment decision making. So fourth session was by Brian Putt and myself. And again, in the theme of risk awareness, we took the most absurd situation, whether a decision, whether we need to take an umbrella or not to take an umbrella, and showed how to use influence diagram, strategy table, and Monte Carlo simulation to solve that problem. Now, as you can appreciate, and I hope everyone gets it, this workshop is not about an umbrella. No one cares about an umbrella. The cost of taking or not taking an umbrella most of the time is quite insignificant. So we didn't do a workshop how to solve the umbrella problem. We did a workshop on a simple case study, how to show and present how to apply influence diagrams, decision trees, and Monte Carlo strategy tables, and Monte Carlo. And this is why I think this workshop, it's very basic, it's very simple, it's step by step, and we actually spent 80%, probably 90% of the workshop we spent in Excel, actually going through step by step, demonstrating how to model it. So highly recommend, specifically for the reason to learn how to apply different techniques to any kind of the problem, including the problem of taking or not taking an umbrella. I mean, I had a Monte Carlo budget for my wedding. This is just how crazy some risk managers are. The fifth workshop was me sharing a little case study we did for our environmental teams, and we took water pollution and we built a model around water pollution to show a few things. First, the consequences of water pollution can be financial in terms of fines and legislation breaches and additional payments for the environmental damage. But also there is a huge aspect of business impact. For example, closing the production for up to 90 days, or I forgot the English word, being forbidden to uh, put any more water into the nearby rivers or lakes, and that uh, yeah, thanks, Fiwi. Yeah, I did have a Monte Carlo budget for my wedding. Um, we showed that there's the legislative impact in water pollution. There's also the huge business cost of not being not only compliant but also not reducing the risk as much as possible. And we've showed how by calculating this kind of risk loss exceedance curve for pollution, and we've done it for water pollution, air pollution, waste, but I only showed an example of water pollution. And we showed that by doing a loss exceedance curve, this distribution of risk exposure or a risk profile, essentially, you can then solve so many business problems because first, it's much easier to communicate to the decision maker. You can communicate what's the expected losses, what's the unexpected losses, what's the worst case scenario, what's the best case scenario. You can also communicate you can test how different mitigation strategies actually reduce or change the risk profile, and you can test which mitigation has the greatest effect on the change of the risk profile. So it makes this whole conversation around environmental risk much more quantitative, much more tangible, and much more, I guess the respected is not the right word I'm looking for, but much more appreciated in the eyes of the shareholders, because we start talking about not just scary stories about, oh, somebody polluted and it was bad for the environment, but it has a very direct and immediate effect on the business operations. So I showed that. Then the sixth workshop was by Maria Kozlova, who, by the way, was the most liked workshop during the second day. So congratulations, Maria. Your work made an impact to the audience, and I'm glad people appreciated it. Maria showed a wonderful technique on how to decompose your loss exceedance curve, your Monte Carlo distribution, your risk profile into the underlying factors, which is a better alternative to a tornado diagram that we would normally use. Tornado diagram is quite limited because it kind of takes one variable at a time, and it just shows its kind of independent effect on the final decision. Maria and the team, I'm guessing, at LUT University have figured out a mathematically sound way of showing how different risks and different assumptions affect your overall risk profile. Quite a valuable exercise in communicating the risk profile to the decision makers. So I highly recommend watching Maria's workshop as well. Again, available in replay. Next workshop was from David Vos, who is a good friend and who I'm sure most of you know and love, and really follow his sarcastic articles on heat maps, which I think was probably the greatest piece of writing on LinkedIn ever. But so David, joking aside, David showed a few important messages, and one of the most important message was that underneath each risk is yet another very valuable technique, and that technique is called bow tie diagram. That is again one of our kind of top 5 techniques in our tool set that risk manager can pull out and make sense out of almost any risk on the planet. If you ever have to deal with a new risk, then bow tie, influence diagram, and decision tree. Those are kind of the 3 things that can capture probably 99% of the risks and help you make sense of 99% of the risks on the planet. So David has been proponent of quantitative stochastic bow ties for a very, very long time, and he showed a demonstration on how to apply bow ties to your corporate risk analysis. And so again, watch it for the bow ties and watch it for that, and watch it for one moment where David Vose has to talk about inherent and residual risk on the heat map. Okay, on a slightly different, mathematically more sound heat map, but heat map nevertheless, with a straight face. So I just watch it for that. I enjoyed it enormously. Good workshop on the bow ties, and making bow ties stochastic is super important. For example, when the shareholder asked us to help quantify compliance risks and legal risks, stochastic bow tie was our go-to solution, because whenever you have a risk which doesn't have some sort of prescribed legislation or prescribed method, like credit risk, for example, there are textbooks and regulatory requirements for credit risk, and you don't have to recreate the wheel. Like, the methodology is already there. For market risk, the methodology for price or foreign exchange, those risks have been done so many times that there's already kind of a methodology which is created. You just have to replicate it and maybe make some adjustments to your VAR equation. And for every other risk where there's no methodology, no solution, for example, compliance, ISO published a standard, and COSO published a standard on. Actually, sorry, I can't remember whether COSO did or not, but if they did, I'm sure I ridiculed it for some reason. But I remember ISO published a standard on compliance and legal risks. And the approach that they proposed is, they said, do a heat map of compliance risks. Now, that is complete nonsense. That is just absolute rubbish. And it was I was disgusted when I read that document. It was an embarrassment, I think, to the to the risk profession. But by the way, if you've never seen me talk before, that's how I normally talk. I'm not aggressive towards anything. That's just my normal persona. Um, but bow ties, stochastic bow ties for compliance risks, is a much better solution. And David showed examples on how to apply that to environmental risks, but again, you can apply it to absolutely anything. Simfi, we thank you for your comment. Have been using bow ties for years, and it still works. If you make bow ties stochastic, though, it will work so much better. You can actually put a Monte Carlo on top. You can run a simulation on the left and right side of bow tie, and then it just becomes the amazing technique that it was designed to be. And before I talk about the final workshop for today, any other comments, questions? Right comments. Brian Part sends me a correction. Well, by the way, thank you, Brian, for doing that, because my brain doesn't always comprehend the whole picture. We did talk about optionality and value of information. Very important concept. So value of information. Actually, of course, thank you for reminding me. Of course, this was like the pinnacle of our conversation. What we talked about is that information has a cost, and that cost either is too much or not enough, and that decision, whether it's too much or not enough, changes depending on the volatility of different uncertain factors. So we showed how to optimize decision and decision about paying for additional information under uncertainty, so under under volatile assumptions. And that was, I think that's one of the underlying reasons on why you would want to rewatch Brian's and my session on identifying and understanding optionality and the value of information from day two, because we've explored how do you calculate value of information and how you make decision about paying for something when there's a lot of uncertainty. Hernan, thank you very much for commenting. COSO published a low value guideline on assessing compliance risks. Yes, that's right. Now I remember. And it was exactly the same as ISO. It was just absolute rubbish. I remember, I think I did like a whole video on 10 reasons why it was the worst thing COSO ever published. Which is kind of hard because everything COSO publishes is is horrible. And that's, by the way, that's, yeah, thank you to COSO, to the whole committee. That's why we have Risk Awareness Week, because I saw what they've done and how they destroy risk management profession, and I felt I cannot stand with that, and I want to do something completely different. So jokes aside, final presentation was from Fadwa Sahli, and she's the Chief Risk Officer of Dubai Green Fund, and she talked about impact investing and adding a new set of criterias to investment decision making to challenge this conventional thinking about NPV, IRR, return on investment, making the investment decisions more dimensional, to incorporate the whole consideration for both the social, the environment, the governance. And I love this workshop because, sorry, because I think at the Dubai Green Fund, I think they've nailed it. And I think they went further than most organizations. We're still, for some bizarre reason, we're still talking about ECG risks as if they're separate, standalone, unique set of risks. But in reality, your environmental and social considerations are just a subset of everything you do. Whatever decision you make, it has an environmental angle and it has a social angle. And the quicker we realize that environmental and social is just another two angles to look at any decision at hand, and we should be making, basically it's NPV plus additional criteria plus additional criteria, and if it's kind of a match across all three criterion, then it's a good decision. So first of all, interesting, fascinating case study on how they do it, on how they've changed their investment decision criteria from a normal investment fund. I mean, I worked for a lot of investment funds and sovereign funds, and financial is usually the financial performance or expected return is usually the prevalent criteria. So that was an interesting case study, but it really resonated with me on a different level, that ECG is not a standalone thing in itself where on Friday we have to, think about ECG risks. No, it's really a dimension through which a lens, an additional lens through which you look at everything the business does. You're building a new plant. Well, you can build this same plant in a more environmentally friendly way. You're expanding into a new market when you can do this expansion in a more socially responsible way. And I think that was the main theme of the presentation, and I hope this kind of comes across as this is the main theme of day two as well. So let me summarize day two. Underneath any type of issue or problem, the mathematics is almost always the same. Influence diagrams, decision trees, Monte Carlo on top of all of it, bow tie diagrams, strategy tables, value of information. Some of those concepts are so universal that they can be applied to any problem on the planet. And we should spend more time talking about how to better build decision trees or bow ties, and how to make them stochastic once we've built them, because deterministic decision trees and deterministic bow ties, in my personal opinion, are not good enough. Um, And then we can apply that to any type of problem instead of just talking about climate or cyber or specific risk, because the underlying math is always the same. And then the second aspect is that environmental climate consideration is not it could be a separate exercise in itself. I mean, organizations can actually go through modeling the effect climate change will have on their operation, like as a once-off exercise. This is probably going to be a very worthwhile, although quite a complex mathematical exercise, but probably a very worthwhile exercise. But that is just not enough. Instead of just doing that or getting your ECG rating from a third-party provider, instead of just doing that, the real future, I think, or the real hope for the planet is if we start changing how we how we procure in the more environmentally and socially responsible way, how we invest in the more socially and environmentally responsible way, how we choose technology for modernization, how do we choose EPC contractors, and so on and so on. And so I hope that message came across in day 2 of the conference. I'm glad you've been part of it. Any um, any other questions, comments? Let me check. No, no more comments. Then I thank everyone. Sheila, thank you. I appreciate you joining, and all the replays again are available on the website. And you can replays are available forever. So people keep asking me how long are the replays for? They're available forever. By the way, here's another administration thing that I need to mention. Um, uh, all, all the paid members of the conference will get an official CPD certified certificates of attendance for the workshops that you attended. Not at the end of each day, not at the end of the workshop. So you don't need to send me a message 5 seconds after the workshop has finished, at the end of the full week. So I will be sending, the system will be sending automatic certificates to all the paid members who have attended workshops. So just a little bit patience on the certificates, you will definitely get them. Now, if you don't get them, then of course message me and I'll check what happened and I'll send it to you. Thank you everyone, and I'll see you tomorrow.